as far as I know, unique in Northern America, or the first time in Northern America. For me, it's a historical moment to be invited to present you a system of existential motivation which we developed in Austria, in Europe, in the last 15 years, and which I was never able so far to present in Northern America. I did it several times in Southern America, but here it's a great honor and pleasure for me to have you as an audience and to step in with you into a deeper, I hope a deeper understanding of fundamental essentials of what is moving us, seen from an existential point of view. I like to structure the presentation this way, that I first would like to give you a brief introduction on the historical background of this motivational thinking, which is the logotherapy of Viktor Frankl, and give just a brief overview of what is Frankl saying about anthropology and motivation, and then for the major time is reserved for the presentation of this development. And I would like to show you, of course, with PowerPoint slides, some topics of this presentation, and to deepen the one or other question and to come in contact with you and to have some interchange if you are interested in that. Well, let me start with the... Something happened here. Yeah. Let me start with the first question. What is existential analysis? It was founded by this is the introduction here. Existential analysis, the development, and some cornerstones of existence. And then we go into the specific existential motivation. Well, existential analysis was founded by Viktor Frankl in Vienna. It is better known under the name logotherapy, especially in the United States. Logotherapy, I'm coming to that a little later. In the 20s already and in the 30s of the last century, Frankl developed this thinking coming up directly from Sigmund Freud and Alfred Adler, who were his first teachers and with whom he was in contact. This was the very birth of modern psychotherapy in Vienna, but Frankl was not fulfilled and was not quite satisfied by the analytical thinking, and he thought that something is lacking, especially the search for meaning is lacking in this type of psychoanalytic and individual psychology of Alfred Adler. And he developed logotherapy as a counterweight to psychoanalysis. A counterweight because logotherapy stresses the specific human resources, the potential of the spiritual or the noetic power in man, the potential which means that humans have a potential of choice and decision making. And this gives them a responsibility of as the center of human reality. Being responsible is thought as being the center through which, or the entrance through which we get reality in our hands. And for practicing decisions, choice, and responsibility, we need a system of coherence, of understanding, of being embedded in a greater context. And this is the need for meaning. Without meaning, we are not able to make decisions which are real decisions, that means decisions which provide a certain fulfillment. Frankl's developed therefore a philosophical concept of man and introduced logotherapy as a practice. Logotherapy is thought by him as a treatment or a therapy, as the name is saying, a treatment through meaning, which means that in logotherapy, therapists are mainly looking of the lack of meaning and are working about the possibilities where you can find meaning. And therefore, in the view of Frankl, logotherapy stresses the specific human factor. In his anthropology, the human resources are seen as the noetic power, the defiant power of the spirit, as he was calling. That means that we can resist to almost anyhow if we have a meaning. The potential of making choices and decision is deriving from this spiritual or noetic power. I know about the difference of the English term of spiritual, but in Frankl's literature, the German word Geist was always translated with spirit and spiritual, but at the same time, Frankl used the term noetic to precise the difference to the religious understanding of spiritual. Here there is by no means thought a religious understanding, but it is a concept which is open to any religious understanding, which is not excluding religious understandings. Responsibility is the center of human reality, and this leads to a need of coherence and understanding of meaning. The center of Frankl's concept of man is, or his anthropology, are two terms which he introduced into psychology, the term self-distancing or self-detachment, which means that through his spiritual power, we are able to take a stand toward ourselves, that we don't have to be, that we are not necessarily victims of ourselves, of our drives or wishes or needs. We have them and they belong to us, of course, but at the same time, we are able to cope with them, to deal with them, to come to an interchange and to give our personal answers and our gestalt to them and in the way we live them. And this is a specific human capacity which shows the power of this power of the spiritual in man. At the same time, another power arises from the spiritual, which is the possibility to transcend oneself to another, to something which is not myself. Frankl was calling this second outcome of the spiritual power, he was calling it self-transcendence, which means the possibility to transcend one's own borders. I am not fixed within myself. I am open toward a world which I am not only receiving, but in which I am possible to act freely, which means to act on the basis of my own decisions and related to my responsibility. Self-distancing and self-transcendence as the basic of Frankl's concept of man. In the practical application, Frankl used the self-distancing or self-detachment as the basis for his famous paradoxical intention, which is a specific technique for treatment of fear, of anticipatory anxiety, which is the core of the treatment with paradoxical intention, and the self-detachment, self-transcendence is used as the basis for his other method, his main method, which he developed for de-reflection. Let me come to an evaluation of these layers Frankl has given to us. We see now logotherapy as a valuable, and it has always been seen as this, as a valuable supplement for psychotherapy in medicine, in social work, in psychology, in counseling, wherever you have to deal with humans and their search for an understanding, for dealing with realities which are hard to support. Wherever you have to do that, logotherapy is helpful as a concept of man, as a ladder which helps to understand their own position and what how you can deal with it, and come along with it. It is helpful also for specific indications like in crisis intervention, anxiety disorders, and sexual dysfunctions. These were the main indications where Frankl used logotherapy and practiced it, and it is up to now are these indications where it is still in use and in development. And also a third emphasis logotherapy is used in, is given in prophylaxis and prevention, is for instance for burnout prevention, for prevention of existential vacuum, which is a sense of meaninglessness, a deep feeling of meaninglessness and apathy and loss of interest, which is not yet a real disease or a disorder, but when it persists, then it leads easily to depressions or to aggressive reactions or to addiction. These are the main outcomes of a persisting existential vacuum, as Frankl understood it. It is a good prevention in pedagogics, in youth work, in midlife crisis. Midlife crisis, we understand it mainly as a meaning crisis in the mid of the life, when you see half of your time is gone, and if you double your time, then you are already at the end, and this has been your life. Can it really be? Can I continue this way? And this makes up the midlife, brings up the midlife crisis. And of course, the older age, when you are restraining from work and you are maybe suffering from several diseases or so, then the logotherapeutic thinking is a helpful psychology. For a full psychotherapy, we see nevertheless some deficits. The theory and practice for handling emotions is not given. The psychodynamics and biography is not worked through. Instead, psychodynamics does not matter, has not any impact in logotherapy. And this is a big deficit for treatment when you have real diseases which are fixed in coping reactions, and so you have to have a knowledge about the psychodynamics as well as to work with biography, because diseases, disorders, fixed reactions have their history and have their backgrounds. They are not only a weak point in the human, they have their meaning and want to say something to the person something which sometimes has a personal history which is not worked through, and therefore you have to go back to that point of one's life where it started and where the impeding factors came in, and therefore, in our opinion, in our experience, a psychotherapeutic work which is omitting biography is not a complete work. It does not mean that we do it in the same way as psychoanalysis is using or implementing biography. We do it in an indicated manner, but it very often is necessary just to round up or even to come to the causal point of starting of the disease, the disorder. Frankl was strictly against any work in biography, and this was one reason which brought up tensions with our society. Also, logotherapy does not have an elaborated psychopathology and etiology. It has some beginnings in it, and it has some interesting thoughts, but a system of psychopathology is lacking, and there is also lacking methods and techniques. Frankl developed only these two I mentioned. He developed one or two other which one can say, like the Socratic dialogue or logodrama, but which is rarely used and which is in a general field of talking, which has to be understood in the general field of talking, which is not a specific method. And therefore, this is the main critic which is was coming up in Europe, especially for logotherapy, and we took it for serious and worked on it in the last 20 years in our society in Vienna. Existential analysis today, let me have a brief view on that. We tried to work, there's a mistake, excuse me, on the theory of emotion and of psychodynamics. Some of them will be very clear in the course of this workshop. A theory of psychopathology and etiology. Also, we will have some glimpse on that in this workshop, how it is interrelated and how psychopathology is related to anthropology, which is very interesting. That how it goes and fits together with the normal functioning of the person and of the activities. We developed biographical work and trauma work. We developed methods and techniques and have now a whole bunch on it and have it on systematic layers. My wife Sylvia is talking tomorrow afternoon about how they are systematically arranged and how the different layers can be used. The layer of where you attach at the resource level, the layer where you work on a trauma level, and the layer where you work on the deepest layer in psychotherapy, where you work on the process level, of the personal process level. We have specific concepts, we have developed specific concepts for treatment, specific for diagnosis. We treat anxieties differently than depressions, and those differently, in a different manner than hysteric symptoms or diseases. We have different treatments for specific personality disorders, and there has been a lot of work in our group, mainly in Vienna. Nowadays, in existential analysis, we see logotherapy mainly in the field of counseling, which means that in counseling you are not in such a tight relationship with the patient as you are in psychotherapy, and you don't have you have no ego support as you have in psychotherapy, and so on. There are specific differentiations between counseling and psychotherapy. We see logotherapy as a part of existential analysis. It is the specific of logotherapy are the meaning-related problems. The meaning-related problems which arise mainly in deeper losses. If you lose your relationship, if you lose your job, if you lose health, and so on, then you are forced to look after a new concept of understanding, after your meaning of a new context in which you can find yourself, and therefore this is the meaning-related problem. Logotherapy is only a part of that. In existential analysis, we see that as an analysis of conditions of life in view of the possibilities, of those possibilities which are worth to be realized. An analysis of conditions of life, which means that what do we need that we can come to a full life, to a full existence? What are those conditions? And we will talk about those conditions right now. In view of the possibilities, the conditions are given facts. The conditions we live here, for instance, is this room, this light, and you have me as a presenter, and everybody has his degree of tiredness and being awake, and so on. These are all conditions, given facts, and existential analysis is not viewing the conditions such as they are, but we are looking at the conditions at the point of view, what are they giving free? What are the rooms which they give in between the fixed points? So there it is not fixed what we think right now, what we do right now. We can change it. You can ask a question. We change theme. We change the process, and so on. This is all open, but it is based on conditions. And in existential analysis, we look on this horizon. This was a picture Frankl was giving. We look on the horizon. The lower level of the horizon are the fixed givings, the datas, the facts. The upper level is like the heaven, which is the air, which is not fixed, where there is movement, where there is openness. And so we are living always in this type of horizon with given facts and with an openness where things can be changed, where things are in our hands of responsibility. Sometimes the height of the horizon is very high and we see almost no heaven. Then we are really deep in our sorrows and problems, and we are struggling with our life. Sometimes we have the horizon lowered and we have even a good overlook over our situation, over our life situation. Well, existential analysis is looking at the given facts of at the conditions of life in view of the possibilities, which is the not fixed, which is that what is depending on ourselves, on how we deal with them, worth realizing. Not all possibilities. There are many, many possibilities. We don't even think of them. We choose amongst the possibilities, those possibilities where we feel attracted, where we have the feeling, and I say feeling, that it is important to live for. Possibilities where we can say afterwards that it was worth it to do it, that it was worthy living for it. Possibilities like hopefully our job, we are working in our dealing with patients, like our living in the family, our work for it and for children and so on, for our writings, whatever we do, that we can say afterwards, well, this was a good job, this was a good time, it was worth living it. These possibilities, and this is the human challenge, to find out these possibilities. It's in a sense natural and very clear, and sometimes it's so hard to find it. If we live these possibilities worth for living, then we can say this is existence. This is not a philosophical description or definition of existence. It's a practical, more practical description of what we understand under existence. And I have to say it because existential analysis is using the term existence. And existence means a transgressing oneself into a world, but in a way, transgressing in a way that it lets back, or it brings up the feeling of being rewarded. And it can be it can be, it is responsible also in the face of the other. The aim of existential analysis, and maybe this is the aim of all existential psychotherapy, I'm not sure, but in existential analysis, we define the aim with a short and easy understandable term. We try to help ourselves, others, to live with inner consent to what one is doing. This means an application of freedom and responsibility. The term inner consent means to take for serious one's own experience, one's own feelings, one's own thinkings, one's own inner consistency in view of the outer world. Inner consent means I give my own yes to what I'm doing right now. I can sit here and talk here without inner consent, thinking or feeling. Maybe it's more a feeling. Sometimes it's more a feeling that it would be better not doing it, being somewhere else, making holidays, etc. And I'm just doing it, feeling forced in a way. Then I'm standing here with no inner real consent, with some degrees of consent, but not with a full consent. A full consent is when we are sitting here and having the inner feeling of, yes, that what I'm doing now is good. It is worth to be continued, or I can stand to them. I can accept it. I feel a yes to to just what I'm doing. And this, yes, this is very, very simple, and it is very complicated. The rest of our seminar is going on this inner yes, and on the manifold layers which are implied in this inner yes. To live with inner consent leads to a reducing of stress. It is well captured in the concept in Maddy's concept of hardiness. It gives this, let's say the how do you say it, Fluchtpunkt in German, viewpoint, yeah, where the dimensions, the 3 dimensions of the room come seemingly together. The viewpoint, it's maybe the viewpoint of hardiness, and therefore I think it's a very specific term for describing existential psychotherapy in general, to find out this inner consent, which is not a cognitive decision, which is also a cognitive decision, but which is mainly based on a feeling, of a sensing, based on a bodily sensing of agreement, of, yeah. Also, Carl Rogers was thinking in this way when he was very parallel in this point. Well, to come to this inner consent, we have to deal with some cornerstones of existence. What are the central themes, for instance? What are the central themes of my life? I would like to invite you just for a minute to think about that. What is my first idea coming up if I ask me this question? The central theme of my life today, this week, this month maybe. Are there central themes where my life is turning around? Which themes which are taking my force, my thinking, my feeling, themes where I have, with which I have to deal with, willingly or not. Maybe I have no inner consent, but I'm forced because it is a disease, a sickness, a problem which was arising. I didn't want to have it, but I have it. And so I think every one of us has central themes which are changing, of course, maybe from one day to another, from a week to a next week, from a month, and from in our 20s, a central theme is how to come into a good relationship and to build up to have the learning for a future profession. And the 30s is the grounding of family and job, and in the 40s to get more clear and established in one's job. In the 50s, you already think about your successors and so on. There are central themes coming along with the certain epochs in one's life. But there are also central themes coming along with the specific situation in which I stand. They do not always depend on what I want. Sometimes they are given to me. I'm forced to deal with. But all central themes are existential themes. The question is if we understand them or not. What are central themes of my life today? What do I have to deal with in my life now? It would take us several times to have a phenomenological look at our central themes and to come through to the essence. And our thesis is that all central themes in a life go back to four realities, four fundamental realities. The one reality is the dealing with the world, with how to earn some money, which is a real, factive situation in everyone's life, how to hold one's sanity and health, the world and the body, which is belonging in a way to the world with its facts and possibilities. How can I find my food when I'm hungry? Where can I sleep, which is giving me shelter? Where can I be active? And a good deal of our life is going to get rid with the world, which is the basis. The world is the basis on which we stand. If we don't have a good contact to the world, we cannot overcome. It's a very simple fact. If the world is stronger than I am, I can't live any longer. I must find my way. The way is an openness within the world where I can go along. I don't have to climb all the mountains, but I have to find my way, my openness to come through these realities. Another fundamental reality with which everyone is dealing in his entire life is life itself, which means that we are not only stones, senseless stones or feelingless matter, reality. We are embedded in a life, and we take part at the life, which means we are born, we are growing, we are maturing, we are getting older, and we are disappearing. We are embedded in a time, and therefore we are always related. Our living means being related. We will see it later on more closely. Being related and having feelings. Being alive is something different than only different to the computer thinking. A third fact we have to deal with is the being oneself. Everyone is a person. Every human being is a person, which means that he is unique, he is autonomous, has his own will and freedom, which means to be autonomous. And he is responsible, which means that it is not the same what we do. It has different consequences for oneself and for others. And it is ourselves who did it. So we come into the realm of guilt also, and of having bad feelings in the living together. Being oneself means to find his identity, to know who I am. This is also a big, basic, fundamental theme in our life. And we only found 4 basic themes or fundamental realities. The 4th is the meaning context, to deal with the wider context in which we are standing. The wider context is why we are sitting here, for instance. This is not just for sitting here. It means more. We do it for something which is not the situation itself, which belongs to other situations, to other contexts we are standing in. So we are all dealing with a wider context which is open us our future. Future is our wider existential context. Not in terms of room, but in terms of time. And the becoming as a central theme, Victor von Weizsäcker, for instance, took it as central as Frankl took the meaning concept in his existential thinking. The becoming which derives from one's own activity, which is not only a physical process of growing and maturing deriving from life. The becoming is the shape we are giving to our life and to ourselves through our decisions. What are the consequences deriving if these are really the fundamental realities of existence? The realities lead to a continuous, uninterrupted concern with them. If they are really basic, we are continuously concerned with world, life, being oneself, and future or context. It leads to an exchange and dialogue of and dialogue. It leads to an understanding and deepening. We need to have an understanding of the situations we are. And we need to have an understanding what is going on in the world, what is doing with my life, what's an understanding of myself, who I am, understanding of what I'm living for, an understanding of my future. And a deepening, a continuous deepening, coming to a closer and deeper understanding. In many catastrophes of our life are leading us to that deepening which we are not reaching if we don't have them. But it is like a law in life that we are forced to come to a deepening, or we have feelings which don't give us that inner satisfaction, that we are not satisfied with life, and we not being satisfied in life means we are looking out for more and more and for having more. But this is not the way we can come to this deepening which is needed. It leads to, it means that these realities are underlying all human activities, and they are a fundamental challenge of our personal position. They are asking ourselves for an answer, for our specific answer, for our stand, for our personal position. The result if these are the really fundamental realities, the result is that the cornerstones of existence turn into fundamental existential motivations. In the case, they are really underlying all our activities and our being in the world. Then we are always dealing with them, and then it means they are moving ourselves. In every decision, in every reaction, we find them. Not always in the same combination. Sometimes one reality is the foremost, the most important reality, but sometimes they are all four together in the same degree. Let me now come. Is this clear so far, or do you have questions? Is there any question? Yes, please. Yeah.
And with meaning, logotherapy to psychoanalysis, that we have to have good knowledge of it in order to, and I see it as being able to stand by itself, like it doesn't need anything else, and if anything, I see logotherapy and meaning, existential meaning, closer to emotional, rational type of therapy or philosophy. Or I misunderstood. Maybe I misunderstood.
Maybe I was not clear in this point. I would not link logotherapy to psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis was the historical background. Frankl was in correspondence with Sigmund Freud and so on. And not being entirely happy with Freud's psychoanalysis, he was developing logotherapy as a counterweight to psychoanalysis. So it is right on the opposite to psychoanalysis. Yeah.
Because I see it as standing by itself.
Yeah,
like
it's standing.
I see it very,
That's right. Yeah.
Development right now, I see
Yeah.
it as a strong
Yeah.
way of
Yeah.
thinking.
That's right. It was just coming up from that need to bring in central human topics like term of meaning into psychotherapy, which was not the case in psychoanalysis at that time. It has changed nowadays. The term meaning is used also in psychoanalysis, in ego psychoanalysis, for instance, Kohut and Kernberg, and so there are different thinkings nowadays, also in psychoanalysis. Yes, please. Thank you. Of not?
Or patients and or clients, and I understand that then using the term psychoanalytically, and if that's so, have you considered ways in which the existential therapist does provide support and legal support only in the sense of conveying ways to synthesize the mundane and the transcendent? I'm not so sure we don't provide anything to the
Yeah. The way, the type of relationship in existential analysis is different to the type of relationship in psychoanalysis. Nevertheless, there is one common point. I use the term ego support, which is a psychoanalytic term, I know. And in a way, I would say our way of participating in dialogue and being with the patient and going along with him and giving him the feeling of being close to him and not to retract myself and holding myself in a distance where he can project his feelings and so. No, to really participate in the encounter we have. This is, and I feel myself in therapy like in this way, that I am bearing with the patient, which I'm not doing when someone is coming for a couple of hours for counseling to have some advices or to talk through a problem or a specific theme. More strength to develop his own personality. He needs my face, he needs my encounter, and he needs me to be with him and bear with him. In that sense, I would say. Yeah? Thank you.
In other words, forming with the person and entering their world rather than being detached and analyzing from a distance.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And also I appreciate your opinion about the low horizon versus high horizon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it this way. And that gives us an understanding how deep the person is thinking in their feeling of sorrow or struggle and losing perspective versus how much possibilities and options and aspiration you want to help them come up.
Mm-hmm.
Just a question about the inner consent. Does that mean also helping people reaching inner harmony and deep contentment with themselves and the world?
Mm-hmm. Right. Inner consent does not mean having no problems. Inner consent does not mean making no errors. Inner consent brings up or lets stand all the problems we can have. But it gives one thing. It gives a deep inner relationship to myself, that I don't leave myself aside, that I am with me also through difficult life situations, that I behave just in that way, that I can look into my face, that I can have the feeling, this I am. May the circumstances be as difficult as they are, but I don't lose myself.
It is different than self-fulfillment in terms of being self-centered.
Yeah,
Like
that's
some cultures really
right. Yeah,
while here we see emphasis between freedom, autonomy, and responsibility. And each culture sometimes, the West versus the East,
yeah,
emphasize different things, but I like the balance.
yeah. In another public relation, in another public paper, I was talking about that existential analysis has a balance between the Western and the Eastern thinking. And it's not so ego-centered that it looks like it could be, if you think of maybe Sartre or so, that everything, or Heidegger, everything is turning around oneself. From outside it could have that shape, but thank you for I take it as a contribution, which is explaining it more clearly. Thank you.
And finally, what I find interesting and way of thinking is that it's not saying to the patient, okay, like usually in counseling or therapy, try to identify suffering or things to find out of that. But you say, it's impossible, like, or it's not always possible, of course, to try to alleviate suffering, but it's more giving meaning or it's more finding, it's more for the client to find meaning and all that and to go beyond that, isn't it? So it's not an extent free of suffering.
It's no existence free of suffering. No, no. It's to understand. Maybe I can't, in many cases I cannot understand the suffering, but I can understand my behavior. And this is important. If I don't understand my behavior in suffering, then we have then it is catastrophic. Yeah. Let's take these questions and then we continue for another 15 minutes and make a pause. Yes? Sal, please.
In existential analysis, as a psychotherapist, you would not want to, through empathy with the patient, just go the patient's in. You wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's good to be able to live with, a minimum of pain, but the way to accomplish that in existential analysis, what you were saying, is to help the person understand the underlying basis of the pain.
Mm-hmm.
You then provide the basis, a way for either accepting it on the patient's part or doing something about it.
And even if you don't understand it, or even if, you have to accept it, and then from then on you make a decision. Existential therapy gives hope into the person's potential in making decisions and taking over their own life. So even if you don't understand, we don't understand, but I have to go to that grief, and let's make the best out of it, as much as I can, and give hope to the patient that they can do something of fix it, they can give some meaning and get something to get from. No?
Yeah. It is difficult to give hope. Sometimes you can give hope by giving a new view of what is going on. There is a difference between the religious ministry and psychotherapy and also logotherapy. And the religious ministry has other possibilities, and we should take clear differences. There is also another possibility to give an antidepressant. And so you have many possibilities. One is psychotherapy or logotherapy. And giving hope can come with a new view on what is going on, but also just by going into a grief process, and then something is coming up, a new feeling for what is going on, and mainly this new feeling is if I enter in a new relationship with myself, and then I'm able to have another relationship with my world, with my changed world, and this is giving me hope. Having the feeling, we come to that when we are speaking about the life. On the grief process. So, well, yes, please.
It seems to me that many times the first decision that the client will make is whether they want to do this work. Because many clients who are very anxious don't want to experience pain, ongoing way, or to consider many more possibilities, which makes them more
Right, yeah.
So perhaps the first lesson that
It's just to accept it.
is whether they really want to do this kind of work, because it's longer and you're more suffering.
Exactly. Sal, is that... Right, yeah. We are... Yeah. We are coming to that when on the first level then. Yes, please.
It appears to me that existential therapy places a great deal of emphasis on individual responsibility, tremendous load on the individual, and in a way, perhaps overwhelming. I just thought about choice. That's a choice that must be made because and I'm wondering about that. And I'm wondering about the continuous concern. It sounds like agitation. It sounds like somebody like continuously, and I agree with it in a way, and I understand what you're saying, but it's almost like there's an anxiety inherent in existentialism in your way of thinking. Almost because it's constantly concerned, you're going to be anxious, you're going to be concerned,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's no balance there with contentment and seeking for peace and seeking for contentment. There seems to be more of a inherent quality of anxiousness in this overly responsible view of one's life. And that's on the individual, too. It doesn't seem to be, I'm not criticizing, it doesn't seem to be any communal sense about it. It's all the individual, and the burden on the individual. I remember a quote by Eric Hoffer, who were a philosopher, in that day. Man's existence has to be predicated on finding meaning in those meanings and continuously bursting burdens. And I have a feeling that this is there's something burdensome about it that I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's burdensome.
Yeah.
It almost has to be some kind of other aspect that unburdens this poor guy, person who has got the world on his shoulders.
Yeah.
He's got to find meaning not only for himself, but for life in particular. And that's a burden.
Yeah. We go through the process, and at the end I'm asking you if it's still a burden or if you feel any lust to do it. Okay, but on the other hand, you show, you point with your finger on one aspect of any existential philosophy, that life is also a burden. And life is a challenge, is a task, a duty to be fulfilled. This is also the existential wind which is going through. Yeah. These two questions. What? Yeah. We come to that. On many on each layer, you come to spirituality. At the end, you end up in spirituality. So all these four realities, human realities, existential realities, are like four sides of an island, surrounded by the sea of spirituality. And normally we live in the middle of our island. And sometimes we go to the seashore, and then we see, especially when we are forced, we go there, or when we are deepening ourselves, then we see how this reality we are dealing with, world, life, etc., is related to a deeper reality which is transcending this where we are standing. Last question.
I just had a comment because the issue of suffering came up, and the issue of life being a burden came up, and I just wanted to point out that if you look at the etymological root of the word suffering in Greek, underground and despair. The life is a burden, despair, burden, undergo something. But I'm thinking in the sense of undergo, in the sense of which one is devoted, which one feels, and it's attached. So I'm interested also in the sense in which I think you're getting at, where the emotion feels.
We come to that, yeah? Okay, last question.
I guess my question was kind of on the same vein when you say that inner consent is saying
Mm-hmm.
So inner consent means the ownership,
Mm-hmm.
and that would definitely be a chance.
Mm-hmm. To make it to my own, to make my life, to my feelings, my reality, to my own.
To my ownership, and that's
Yeah, that's own. That's the task. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, let me continue, and I think many questions will be answered. Is it okay if we continue for another 15 minutes and then we make a break? Okay. The existential motivations, we enter now into these 4 motivations. To say the first existential motivation is the dealing with the fundamental condition of existence. Our first task is to develop our ability of being, or to implement our innate ability of being in this world. The question is, what makes it possible that I can be in the world? Or another question, on which do I rely being in the world? What does holding me, supporting me? Therefore, the basic question of existence is simply this. I am. This is a fact. Maybe I don't want it, but I'm here. Maybe I never wanted to be here, but it's a fact. I am here. This is a big challenge. I am. Maybe I am grateful, and maybe I'm happy, and I love it to be here. Nevertheless, both starting points lead to the same issue. The issue, can I really be here? Can I be with my partner, relationship? Can I be on this working place? Can I be with my body, my health, my sickness, my handicap? Can I really overcome life, this existence, this situation here, can I be suddenly being pregnant with this pregnancy? Can I be in my economic situation? Can I be having this family, etc., etc.? There are so many facts we are embedded, thrown into, as existentialists, some existentialists say, or put into. There are so many facts, and they all arise the question, can I be with them? Can I be with these problems? And can I be with these donations, gifts, and whatever? Why does this question arise? This is a basic in existential philosophy, of course, because nothing is secure. There is no security in life. There is no warranty. We have to live with uncertainty. And uncertainty means it's not guaranteed that you come through. If the conditions press on me, I cannot be. It is impossible to support. Conditions which press in that way on me lead to the fact that I cannot accept this reality. I cannot accept the trauma, the pregnancy, the problem. I cannot accept any longer this relationship if it is pressing on me and in the deepest brings up the feeling, under these circumstances I cannot be any longer. I cannot be in the world, in this world which is my world. The most basic ability is, if I can say, I can be. Being able to exist is the most basic ability. This means realizing of I am here. If I can say, I can be. The fact that I am makes all possible. As long as I am, I have possibilities. This is just being is an ability. Just being brings along the ability, the basic ability of a little bit of I can. As long as I am, there is an I can. This is very important, for instance, for old people, for sick people, for handicapped people. Being alive means I can. I have possibilities. There is a chance. And we have to ask ourselves, we can ask ourselves, where are my capabilities, my abilities, my competences, my resources is something else already. The basic layer is my competences. Where do I have the feeling I can? This brings then along the resources of being in the world. What happens if I don't have the feeling that I can be in this situation? That I cannot support it? That it is simply too much for me, this relationship, always these same kind of problems every morning. I cannot stand it any longer, for instance. What happens? The feeling is coming up, I cannot be here. I want to go away. I cannot be here, this means in this world, if the world is alike. This is a very deep feeling of not being able to be. And if whenever I have the feeling of not, I cannot be here, I'm not really motivated for anything else than for overcoming. Therefore, this is the first or the most fundamental existential motivation. To secure the overcoming, to secure the possibility of the chance of being, to continue to be. If I cannot be, my motivation is blockade, and anxiety is arising. Anxiety is the corresponding feeling of not being able to be here. Any motivation is based on that I can or I can be. There is no motivation which has not this most basic layer in it. Motivation attacks, not attack, starts with this or implements this I can. Any motivation is a sort of I can. I cannot is impotency, powerlessness, paralyzation, and there is no movement, therefore no motivation. Excuse me. I can is laying on two legs or standing on two legs. To have enough power on the one hand and to have favorable circumstances, circumstances which allow that I can be, which admit a being here. The first, or on the left side, the power side is the intrinsic side of I can. The circumstances is the extrinsic, the outer side. The power side means I am strong enough that I can endure, that I can bear, that I can support, that I can stand. This changes within life. Sometimes we are very tired, or we are sick, or we are depressed, and we don't have much power. And so we cannot support that much. And in other periods of our life, where we have much more power, where we feel strong and sane and healthy, and we feel in good relationship, and many things are giving me then more strength and power. The other side, the circumstances, means that I have enough protection, space, and outer support, with the consequence that I can accept reality. It is not so easy to accept or to be with frailty, with own failings or debility. Of failed. But this is but if I cannot be, defense mechanisms arise, coping reactions. What do we mean with coping reactions of protection? To secure overcoming. Reflexes, psychodynamic reflexes. Coping reactions are not decisions. They are not causal copings. They are just reactions to secure the situational overcoming.